And so today we're continuing over our series of using the best and worst character in any given year. This time we're doing the year 2020. The year 2020 was definitely a revolutionary year for the game Bleach Brave Souls. Not only was this the year where we got the most set of 1000-year Blood War characters, getting 7 rounds in the course of 1 year, we also got Burn the Witch characters, the first time these characters were playable in any given game. We also saw our first set of Quincy characters, anniversary characters setting the standard that they are going to be some of the best characters in the entire game, bar none. And at the same time, power creep started to kick it up a notch, since we started to get innate abilities, which allowed characters to overall just get more skills. So who's the best and worst character in this year? Well, let's find out. So when it comes to the best character in the year 2020, there's definitely a lot of contenders. So you could generally go with either character, but I would say the main 4 contenders is 5th anniversary Ichigo and Byakuya, and then also the 10 years later version of Ichigo and also Rukia. All 4 of these characters were great, and they were also released for the game's anniversary. In Ichigo and Byakuya's case, it was for the 5th anniversary of the Japanese version, and then Ichigo and Rukia released for the end of the year, also known as Global's anniversary. Now in the end, and I said this a few years ago, I still stand by it, I think Ichigo was the best character of the year, and at the same time, maybe this is cheating in hindsight, he's actually aged in a way the best to a certain extent, and by that I mean his usability in Guild Quest is still there, he's still one of the best characters for the Captain Guild Quests, someone that I still use on a regular basis in the Melee Sopa and also Captain Guild Quests. He was a counter to 6th anniversary Aizen, a character that you saw a lot in the arena game modes, and of course also Brave Bows. This Ichigo is great in Arena on the release of the game mode, a character that I have the most trophies in on my entire account because I used him that much on the release of that mode. And when it comes to Brave Bows, he was also one of my most used characters in my team to counter those 6th anniversary Aizen SP teams, but also boost my team stats with his SA2. And it's for those reasons I'd say he's the best character of the particular year. But again, once more, depending on how you look at it, you could say 5th anniversary Byakuya, you could say 5th anniversary Ichigo, and you could easily say 1000-year Blood War Rukia, given the fact that her increased chance to inflict stat elements saw a lot more usage in content like Inheritance Trials, for example. There's definitely an argument to be made here, but for me, I'm going to go with 1000-year Blood War 10 years later, Ichigo. Alright then, so let's take Ichigo into a single player IZ room. I wanted to try him out in IZ more so because this was the mode that we played a lot when this character was released, right? IT wasn't out. The main way to demonstrate the strength of a character was in this particular mode. And what made this character great was the strong attacks that he does have. A 960 AoE in front of him, which also doubles down as a boost attack. This was in a way revolutionary for the character because every time a character did have a boost SA2, it was always like a 500 AoE around them, and usually it didn't really have the best range. If you had a character that came out, if they had a boost SA2, it meant they were getting a pretty bad or mediocre SA2. But this essentially all changed with Misaki's release a month earlier than this character, but in her case, she was a normal attack damage character. The AoE that she did have, it really didn't matter all that much, but we saw that perfected with this particular Ichigo, as he did have the 960 AoE in front of him, and that's why he's still one of the greater characters in the game, even to this day. Alongside that, really good SA3, Havoc on every single attack, good damage output to 60% Berserker, had some really good utility effects too with the Marauder, extra flash steps, could read Sniper dodges, and at the same time had 2 very good immunities being Weakening and also Paralysis. He was a character on the reveal was obviously very exciting. When we saw the gameplay, they really didn't sell us much on the character. Ruki was the more exciting one, but I think the real prize of the banner was this character. He was just super fun to play around with, really fast at clearing content, great team booster, and it also aged really well in Guild Quest game mode, Brave Battles, and even Arena. We got a 57-second clear time, but let's try that once more to see if we can actually speedrun it even faster. And I think what makes this character special to me and also many others is just the fact that this character exists in this game is so cool to begin with, right? This is a character from the final chapter, 10 years later. Never did I ever think we'd get a character like this in the game, especially only 5 years into the game. We thought, you know, this character would maybe release when we actually get mostly everyone from 1000-year Blood War, but no, he came out way earlier than expected, and at the same time, it was also the final 1000-year Blood War banner for essentially almost 2 years, so it even made it more special, I guess. K-Lab knew they had basically one banner left for quite some time, and they made sure to give us a very special set of characters, that being the 10 years later version of Ichigo and Rukia. At the same time, they even revamped the initial 1000-year Blood War OST that we had that was played in every basically 1000-year Blood War banner trailer. They revamped it, they made it a banner, they made this banner feel really special, and they also made them really good. Ichigo just being the top of his class in many different game modes. One of my favorite characters of the year, one of my favorite characters in the game period, and also the best character in the year 2020. But when it comes to the worst character of the year, just like the best character option, I don't think there's one character that everyone would agree on, and there are definitely a few contenders that you could say is the worst character of the year. Characters like Makoto, Aura, even Cornfield Kenpachi, and also Sanosuke really didn't age the best and weren't definitely the characters that a lot of people were excited for when they first initially released. In my opinion though, I'm gonna go for this one because as someone that played it for a lot to farm links or potions in IZ, it was rough playing with them. And I guess the funny part is too is that we said Ichigo was the best character of the year, and this Momo literally released 2 weeks before Ichigo. And the gap between these two characters' power, night and day in my opinion. So why am I saying this Momo was the worst character of the year? Well, there's many reasons. For starters, the damage output definitely not on the higher side, only having a 20% berserker. But keep in mind, when you do inflict a status event, that being lacerate, you then did do 40% more damage. But in my opinion, the reason why she is one of the worst characters is essentially the SA2 in combination with the fact that she did have lacerate. Now, this SA2, which was actually first implemented into the game with Aaroniero, funny enough, doesn't have the greatest set of invincibility frames. The first part is okay, but the second part of the attack, the pushback attack, it makes you wide open for any attack for any enemy that isn't actually in that radius. And the reason why this was bad is that essentially you use that SA2, if you don't grab the enemy that was nearby, they're potentially going to hit you and you're going to potentially die or lose a lot of full stamina damage. Alongside that too, most importantly, is that because the SA2 can inflict lacerate, this character wanted to be used in Co-op IZ, for example, you would actually use this SA2 on a boss, maybe when they're charging up a strong attack, for example, and because you inflict lacerate, they then start using their normal attacks and start attacking you. And because the SA2 doesn't have any good invincibility frames, it meant that by using its SA2, you're actually hurting yourself to a certain extent because it means you're just even more open for the attack. So I don't think Caleb really thought about the SA2 with the combination of lacerate. Really didn't do this character wonders in my opinion, and that's why I really didn't like playing with her, because one of the great things about that SA2 is that it can do a lot of damage, but a lot of times when I did use that SA2, it meant that I was taking a lot of damage. But trying that once more, let's see if we actually can get a faster clay time. And there's one thing to keep in mind too, even though her gameplay doesn't even seem that bad. Granted, we are taken into IZ, keep that in mind. This was at the time where a character would come out, and like even if they were less ideal or didn't have the best set of attacks, for example, they were still perfectly usable. It's very rare, especially in the year 2023, where we get a character that really is just outright unusable. And I guess that's the good thing about the game, right? As we go down the years, you're going to see some characters that came out and were literally unusable. This Momo had a place in the game, same goes to any other character released in the year 2020, right? I don't think there was a single character that came out and was like, yeah, no, I'm never using that character. And I would say, you know, Cornfield Kenpachi was the worst character of the year, but I think maybe in hindsight, maybe I shouldn't be doing that. I think Kenpachi aged better because he's actually not a bad character in epic grade content, where this Momo, I wouldn't even want to use in epic grade content. Let me just dodge that attack and then finish up with the SA2. There we go. A faster clear time there, 56 seconds. Again, not bad, but in my opinion, worst character of the year. Momo fans, don't come for me, I'm sorry. But let's have a closer look at the two characters. What made one better than the other? Well, for starters, Ichigo, when it came to survivability, had much more going for him. In his case, he had two immunities, that being paralysis and also weakening, whereas Momo was immune to nothing. When it came to damage output, Ichigo was far superior with a way better set of strong attacks, basically the best strong attacks in the game at that period of time. With a 60% berserker and also a team booster, he was helping out his team, and he was also allowing himself to do significantly more damage. These overall skills and damage output have meant this character has been usable even years later. Unfortunately, you can't say the same for Momo, as her damage output was only 20% berserker, 40% more damage to lacerated enemies, sure, but the combination of her strong attacks, especially on that SA2 with the lacerate, really wasn't that ideal. And personally, I don't even like it when I see Momos even join my epic raid lobbies nowadays. Alongside that, even though they released 2 weeks apart, this Momo was unfortunately a character that didn't get any innate skills, which at the time of the character's release wasn't given to every single character. It was still a rarity and a unique thing that end of month characters had. That allowed Ichigo to get significantly more skills that overall made the character better, where Momo was just relying on the 8 skills that she was given, and that meant she was very limited in terms of her damage output, survivability, and she was strictly relying on those strong attacks, which as already mentioned, weren't really the greatest. I think the lacerate did a lot of damage to this character, and had she been given a different status element, she would have easily been a significantly better character, at least in my opinion. So with that said, lads, that was the video for today, comparing the best and worst character in the year 2020. Let me know if you agree or disagree with my particular picks. Again, as already mentioned, there's definitely a few characters who could say that was the best character of the year. I think most people would be in agreement that it's one of these 4 characters. As for the worst character, there's definitely a handful of characters that could have easily had this title. For me though, I'm going with Momo, because the kit, Her skills overall just combined to make a very enjoyable character, especially in co-op content. Hope you liked and enjoyed the video though. Join us back next week when we look at the best and worst character in the year 2019. Hope to see you there. Take care and peace.